Okay, so we have the full board, we have city, and we have public. And so, oh, and we have our facilitator, looks like, and we have UPTV also. So it looks like we're complete. We have panelists here, and then when we switch over, as you all know, we'll relog out and relog in when it comes to the hearing itself. But let us begin, call this meeting to order, and let's take roll.
Mr. Diaz?
Here.
Ms. Kendall?
Here.
Mr. Allegretti?
Here.
Mr. Rice?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Thank you. It looks like the board is officially here, so we'll take care of just the basics then to do the meeting. We'll do public input and then we'll do the hearing part. As usual, people that want to speak, and Ms. Chong raised her hand, and so she's first. If anybody else, please raise your hand also so we can get you lined up. Thank you. Ms. Chong, time is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Tracy Chong. I just wanted to say that when you guys are back into open session and going to vote about the appeal, it would be nice to kind of discuss the case, what you can tell the public, why you made your decision. I guess just so that we are not kept in the dark, because it's closed session and we have no idea what's going on. So at the end of the meeting, if you guys could kind of talk about why you decided to vote a certain way, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
It's a great comment. I wondered myself before on limits, but I think we're more comfortable now. Thank you. Mr. Hanson, you're next.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Christopher Hanson. So there's been a great number of issues that have been brought to the attention of this board over the last few years, and I've been a person who has frequently been bringing those issues to the attention of this board, and two things keep happening over and over. I've had various past and current members thank me for my efforts, although abrasive sometimes, and I've also seen nothing at all change. So I don't know, I just keep bringing this to you guys every month or so. And for the public listening, there's basically no part of this that works correctly. And the biggest evidence for this is in TASER reviews. The CPRB ordinance is explicit. It could not be more explicit that the CPRB and the Urbana Police Department are to review every TASER usage. And a TASER usage, as defined in the ordinance, is when a TASER comes out of its holster. So this is what they're required to do, the police department and this board. And what they did a little over 2 years ago was just decide that they weren't going to do that anymore. And it was on the urging of now Deputy Chief Richard Searles, because he just complains that it's hard and it takes up his time and he doesn't want to do these reviews because he has to edit the video and all this. Complains almost as if he were a child. And the board members have always just sucked that up. That they hear those complaints and they want to respond positively to the charming cajoles of Richard Searles, and that's what they did. And so this board decided we're going to violate the ordinance. We're going to ignore our mandate, and we're not going to review those TASER usages. And instead, we're going to review what seems like one a year chosen by the police department or something like that. And it's been brought to your attention and the city council and about everyone who would have anything to hear about it, that you can't do this. It's not in your power to change the ordinance. That's why the ordinance isn't changed. And so what's actually happening here is not that you made a decision. What's happening here is that every member of this board is involved in misconduct, each of you. And none of you seem to recognize that. And the problem is your task on this board, your only task, is to recognize misconduct. And you can't do it. You can't even do it for yourselves. That's how incompetent you are. And when challenged, you seem to just come up with excuses that don't make any sense. We actually have an instance here where there is a policy, it's a police policy and a CPRB policy, that these taser usages get reviewed. And you guys said, we're not doing it. We have a policy violation. And this board is so incompetent that you can't even recognize it. How are you supposed to recognize other types of policy violations if you can't even admit to and recognize this one? And this has nothing to do with whether or not you should be reviewing these taser uses. It's just not the issue. The issue is the policy requires it. And the police and the board are in violation when you stop doing it. And it's that clear. And there's no excuse that gets by it. There's no explanation that matters. What matters is that this board has demonstrated itself to ignore police policy violations. And that's your job. Your job is to pretend like there's oversight when in fact there isn't any.
Thank you for your comments also. Very tempted to respond to the comments, but I'll save it until we talk tasers and we'll clarify. But for the audience, I urge you to look at City Council meeting committee of the whole last Monday and the original vote, and also
Oh my God.
the audience. So we'll just keep on moving as to what is coming up for tonight, which will be a hearing on cases that are programmed. So thank you. We'll be back to some of these issues when that's the intention of the meeting. We'll just the clarification, when we go into closed session, this is the same Zoom that you come back to, but this one closes off. We open up the other one and then we carry out the hearings. And I think when we come back then is when we vote in public. There is no vote, there is a hearing and a discussion, but everything happens in a closed session except the vote in which we come back. The vote is the official part of what we do. We have at times said a little bit about the case. The confidential part stays in the room, but I think it's a good suggestion to put on the record anything else that might be related policy-wise without any privacy violations. So anyway, we'll come back to that. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of conducting the appeal hearings.
I'll move to go into closed session for the purpose of conducting the appeals hearings as published in the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank
And Colin seconds. And so we'll have a vote and then we'll close up on this side.
Mr. Diaz,
Yes.
Ms. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Allegretti,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We'll see you in a little while. Well, to use our time, I think we have sufficient numbers. I'll entertain a motion to close, to end the closed meeting.
I'll move to end the closed meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Carla, can you roll call us?
Mr. Diaz,
Yes?
Ms. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Allegretti,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I guess you'll always be the last one to vote there. Welcome back, everybody. Besides the panelists in front, I see 2, 4 people, 5 people in the attendees watching. We thank you very much for being with us. We've spent some considerable time in closed session in a hearing. In hearing. So I want to summarize a couple of the things that are coming up so that before we entertain a motion for votes on what we saw there. The first thing is an announcement to everyone that appeals 2020-13 to appeals in sequential order to appeals 20-27 were not heard today, and there has been an agreement to have both city and complainants come to an agreement send in their information by November 12th at the close of business day, so that the complainant can have all information of cases that exist, be assigned a number, and for the city to have all numbers that they have to be on the grid also, because there's already relevant information. At the end of this process, a week from today, we will have a matrix of pending cases with numbers and with a file attached to them. They will then be scheduled to be heard for all those cases that have numbers and cases and case information as soon as possible, because our next hearing will be on November 19th. And at that point, we will be handling, by agreement of all parties, appeal 20-30, which rises out of complaint 2020-R22. And those emails of exchange of information are being as a closed loop. So we have then the information for November 19th and the next meeting after, probably, as to which cases we'll be handling at that point. Okay, that's my pre-announcement to correlate the numbers. I'll make a quick announcement. Our next hearing after that will be on December 10th. So we can continue doing this in the hearing. Thank you very much. Patience for that. Now we're all together. And so we have dealt with AP 20-28 in closed session. And so I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I move to render a finding of sustained based on a preponderance of evidence for appeal AP 20-28, which rose from complaint 20-10.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Kendall. Let's do a roll call vote.
Sorry, go ahead. Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Mr. Allegretti,
Yes.
Ms. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Diaz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
So this case had two prongs that I want to make a couple of comments on. Members of the board, if you'd like to correct me, we are dealing with keeping confidentiality, but I think the issues in these two cases, as suggested, ought to have a little bit of some explanation for the record and for understanding. There were several issues talked about. A major one was a major section of them had to do with Open Meetings Act. And then the next one had to do with misconduct or alleged misconduct, which were investigated. On the OMA information, Open Meetings Act, we found that the CPRB is not the place to have judgment on. There is the Attorney General is the one that has that jurisdiction for violations of the Open Meetings Act. One thing that I learned tonight is that when there is a supposed violation, I don't have the technical language, then the proper procedure is to file a complaint with the Attorney General, and the investigation goes from there. It does not come back to us, and it does not, there is no provision in that ordinance, it looks like, for an enforcement by a police officer. It is handled as a complaint to the Attorney General. Did I see that correctly? Okay, so that was a part then that was handled. The other part had to do with conduct of officer, misconduct of officer, possibly, and that is where this board especially felt that they had the jurisdiction and voted. One clear learning from here, and we want to make this just general knowledge. It is true that residents should never be required to cite a particular police procedure or police policy number to express their dissatisfaction. If somebody has a dissatisfaction, is unhappy with the treatment or with the conduct of an officer, they should say so. Plain language ought to be expressed, and it is for other formats in probably other situations in which the specific number of a policy would be cited. In our forum, we'd like to be as fair as possible for equal language, and therefore the resident and the police department can make their observations understandable to each other. Is there anything else that I should add, members of the board? Okay. I tried really hard because I think it was a very good suggestion. So I think it's time then. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call for that.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Rice,
Yes.
Mr. Allegretti,
Yes.
Ms. Kendall,
Yes.
Mr. Diaz.
Yes, you're number one, Mr. Wilson.
Motion carried.
Good job.
Round and balance.
Take care.
Happy weekend,
Thank you.
everybody.